So tonight, we're gonna be a little different than a typical work session. This is gonna be a little bit more interactive. Hopefully you all had an opportunity to read through the summary that I put together. We're really gonna kind of tackle a bunch of different items. First and foremost is to define what is a downtown. And this is your downtown. What do you want your downtown to be? What do you think it should be included? I included in the packet materials, I think my second foray into ChatGPT and asking a question and seeing what it would spew out afterwards. And that I took it and put it in there verbatim of what a downtown is. And what I read, it seemed very AI generated. So I thought it was, perfect, for an AI generation. But I wanted to just put some seeds in your brain in terms of what AI thinks a downtown is. But the purpose of this first part of the discussion is to talk about what defines downtown for the board. And this is just like shout stuff out. I'm going to put it on the board. I should, before we get too far, introduce Krista Pontius, who is here. She's the individual that we're recommending to go forward with our branding and website help along the way. And she wanted to attend tonight's meeting just to kind of hear this part of the discussion, because it actually will go into a lot of the work that she would end up doing for the town in terms of doing that branding exercise. So, given what was on the page, what defines a downtown?
Okay, I can start just by throwing things out there. My whole vision for Silt, and it would include a lot of the undeveloped land and land that we still need to work within, the town's limit and how we utilize, if it is owned by, different entities as of now, but I'm looking maybe 20, 10, maybe not even 10, maybe 20 years ahead. What I would like to see for the town of Silt would be having a larger park area with the Roy Moore selection, and potentially having that being an entertainment sports center that would attract people that would bring their children to play various sports. And this is just an outright vision. This is not something that I have thought out and have a solution for in the step-by-step on how to accomplish it at all. But having that entire area, whether we get into the middle of moving the town, I don't want to get into it now, the town public works. But the vision would be having the sports area, developing commercial and residential area with the expansion of this current downtown. And once we do have the bridge over to the Silt River Preserve, having that area as, the open area, open space for parks and recreation. And from there, we'll have more residential development around town, but I do have that more forward vision of Silt 20, 25, or 30 years ahead.
So are you saying Roy Moore becomes the cornerstone to our downtown, or is just a feeder to the downtown?
Would be a feeder to the downtown, but it could potentially attract those people that are coming in for those types of sports that we have been able to develop, whether it is baseball fields, or volleyball fields, or whatever sports. And people, we are in a very beautiful centralized area that, people from Up Valley and from different places can come onto, and it's a beautiful place to be explored, and it'll be a great way to feed businesses downtown.
Okay.
To attract that.
And some of my thoughts are, downtowns, things like libraries and post offices. And I know our post office was moved, and that's still a sore spot with me. But, you want to keep things like that, like town halls. You want to have those things in your downtown.
So the civic buildings.
Yes, civic buildings. And, of course, you want restaurants and shops and stuff like that. And, you know, it needs to be walkable as well. You know, and obviously you'd have to have places for, you know, public transportation like bus stops close by and stuff like that. So that's kind of some of my thoughts.
Okay. Who else?
I like the list of the AI generated list. I definitely think when I think of Silts downtown, we have really good community events. Like Halloween and just anything we do, we fill up the whole downtown. There's usually like an MC. You know, that's a really cool thing that not every town still does or ever did. So I think we want to make sure we still have good space for that.
Okay.
My archetype,
Retail.
oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
My archetype is Main Street, the proverbial Main Street, where it's an economic center, it's a transportation center. We've talked about some of these topics recently, more public transport, more economic development, business development, changes in density, mixed use, things of that. To me, that's all encapsulated with that Main Street. When you visualize it in your head, oh, what's Main Street USA? You generally see shops, you know, pedestrian crosswalks, cultural activities, all of those things. But that's sort of the visual archetype in my head.
Yeah. Oh, I have a couple.
And they kind of have that,
And, yeah, architecture.
like a park area, I mean, like a gathering space as well.
Yeah.
To do some small
Plaza.
events. And like, that's where that 7th Street Plaza type thing fits into that, which is we just started talking about.
And to Andrea's point, those things may be a block or two away, but feed into that Main Street area. You know, people may come here for an event, but then they utilize Main Street for a meal before, a meal after, gas, shopping, other economically driven activities, let's call them. It's a place for people who may not already live here to come here in a lot of ways, as well as for us as local members of the community to come and visit the local restaurants and shops.
Yeah.
So I also think we are at a sort of an epicenter, so it would be cool to have just like a sign of many signs that's like Harvey Gap is that way.
More wayfinding?
Like,
Wayfinding.
yeah, like a really cool sign statue that shows all that you can go any direction, any distance, find something cool. I think that would
Are
be
you
cool.
suggesting we're the center of the known universe?
We could be if we put the sign right in the
Second
If
that.
you believe in parallel universes.
Sometimes
In
you
some
gotta-
version
Yeah.
of
Are
some
you
universe.
suggesting sculpture like the one we gave Newcastle?
Yeah.
Be nice to do, you know, the swamp is unbuildable, but it'd sure be nice if a guy could make that like a sports complex of some kind.
Nicole's working on that.
I mean, that's just my thought, because downtown's gonna have to kind of start by the Maverick and come this way, and then a block or so north, because really, we can't go west unless we separate. Because we got, the swamp can't be built on, so you gotta go way on the other side. So, I mean, I'm just saying, if we wanna keep downtown together, if we wanna separate it, then we go out past the post office.
Well, and I think that's, I mean, there's a differentiation in there. There's downtown and then there's other retail and
Right.
other
Yeah.
commercial. And it really, I'm trying to get to, what's downtown? What
Right.
are we gonna, what is it that you want to accomplish in your downtown?
Another thing
What does success look like for your downtown?
cool downtowns, I think, have like a theater with one of those vertical signs, like the U Theater, like a smaller version of that.
Okay,
I think it would be neat.
so, okay.
A theater.
Yeah. But a lot of downtowns have, you know, older buildings with unique architectural features, which we're lacking in that. But
Yes. All the things on this list, I think, are good. So the economic activity, pedestrian friendly, and historic architecture are all things that I think we
yeah,
could use more of.
Not that I'm as good as ChatGPT, but just based upon what I'm hearing, and I'm really joking. ChatGPT is interesting, and somebody ought to run Grok and see what Grok has to say, because Grok could give a whole other layer. I love whoever said walkability. Walkability, I think, is so incredibly important in the community. Just to throw it out there. I mean,
Yeah.
that really piqued my, I mean, all of it's so interesting, but I love the idea of walkability. Some towns have walkability scores. I don't know whether ChatGPT said that or not, but.
It did not. Didn't throw
Yes.
that in there.
Jim, could you have her move closer to a microphone, please?
I can move one closer.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
I think we've heard some feedback that the town could improve its walkability. or-
So what would, again, you know, the original URA did some improvements on Main Street that made it more walkable. Is there more that needs to be done on Main Street? Or could be, or should be, or on walkability?
Probably can fill in the gaps.
There's
you
always
know.
more to fill in.
Yeah, there's always more to fill in, but. you
I
know,
think the bigger problem that I see is all of these things are what you find in a tourist destination. So if our housing discussion that we have is to build more affordable housing here, we're a bedroom community, we're not a tourist community. So these things are not going to happen. If we're gonna be a bedroom community, then this is a grocery store. So our people can live here and go grab groceries.
Yeah, no,
Not-
you're.
I mean, they're gonna be
right.
here to sleep and,
I want to go to the theater here.
I mean,
And
I would
I want to
love,
have like a good quality of life here.
I would love to have that, but then I don't think, then the housing discussion can't be how much affordable housing can we stick in this town?
No, but yeah, I mean, put affordable housing, you know, on the second story, you know, you don't necessarily want, you know, like the apartment building we have downtown. You don't necessarily want those because, I mean, it is affordable, but, you know, you kind of want to keep the first level open for, you know, shops and
You're
restaurants
commercial,
and
but
stuff
then
like that.
you know,
Yes.
is it more viable to have a commercial space with a high-end loft apartment above it? That's going to have someone here that's potentially working from home or working remotely that wants to go grab a lunch at a little shop.
Both. But we need both types. I mean, really.
I think for me, what helped a lot was having that separation, you know, separate things in segment, housing and development and, you know, commercial spaces and business that we want to attract. So we have all of those segments. What helped me was even when we started with the water plant, you know, it started with an idea, a thought process, discussion. And I think that's where we are here. We are developing an idea combined with, you know, the chosen representatives either by the board or by the community to develop the defining point. Just because that's what it is now, still could potentially be, especially with the anticipated growth of, you know, going potentially within the next decade to 7,561 residents, potentially, but to develop the idea for us to have, you know, the master plan aligned. So when Mr. Man asks us as the board to develop that vision, basically that's what we are developing. We are potentially not just looking at like where we are now, but where our citizens would like for us to be and for us to voice that so that can become a plan. And then another part of that I like is that those are feedback that we are getting from the community. The community is sitting, you know, very few ones that are coming here, they're telling us, hey, we need transportation. Hey, I want to be able to have places that I can take my child to. I want to be able to walk over, you know, to the school or walk over to the path to suit. They're telling us over the little bit of feedback that I'm hearing. And even to have plaza hangout areas. And I really strongly feel that developing that idea right now and developing the vision is a positive thing that we can do and we should do to, you know, down the line help manager men have the tools to go out there and get it for us. Because I feel like I'm gonna finish in the next 30 seconds, I promise. He's counting, he looked at the clock. Wow.
That's scheduled.
Focus. 30 seconds. I feel that if we don't take this step, then he won't be able to have the tools to go out there and find fundings and grants. But if I take my spot as a trustee and leave out the vision and leave out the part, I'm taking away a tool that Mr. Management Administrator, Manager, we gave you so many titles. Jim. And, you know, and that's something that he needs it from us as policymakers.
Yeah, I think we just need to make sure we're clear on if this is what we feel the downtown is, then everything else in the comp plan has to work towards that goal.
Well, and this is the direction, that's the direction we're going, is that as you go through defining downtown, we're gonna look at the map, and then we're gonna get in, ultimately, we get in the branding exercise. That's gonna drive your decision-making. How does that, you know, this exercise drive the decisions that you're gonna make in the future? And you're gonna have to kind of be in a position where the brand and your downtown vision, that's what your decision-making is based on.
Right.
How does this fit in? But, so, beyond what's on the page, what's downtown? Is it similar to the, where Misty's Coffee is, where you've got first floor retail with second floor residential, or maybe a third floor? Is that your vision? Is it to keep things low? I mean, I've heard many comments about not wanting to go too high. What is too high? You know, these are items that are going to come up in our future discussion on the comp plan, is what's too high. You know, everybody has a different definition of what's too high. And where does it fit, and how do you fit it in? But that's, you know, that's kind of this piece of it. I just wanted you to start thinking about what would be your vibrant downtown. And you have some of these components already, but I think there's some of them that we still have to work on. I mean, obviously, we're working on the pedestrian bridge and the pedestrian plaza. That's a key component. But what else comes with it? And what else do we want to see? So now, I get to shift gears, because my time's up. What's our current downtown boundary? What's the boundary of the downtown? I was going to make you all get up and come stand around the table because I have this nice big map.
We can if you want.
I feel like it sort of trails off.
Yeah, I know. That's the tough one to define. There
There's a
isn't
core,
really
and then
any.
it just sort of.
Is there a maybe the better question is there a definable downtown?
I mean, we
right
could
now?
look at zoning, the current zoning right now, and there's
Yeah.
a whole area that's zoned as downtown, that area.
But-
So you can look at that.
You
And kinda
could.
start from there, but then that area is not filled in.
Right.
And
Yeah, that
there's been
doesn't-
some discussion that it's almost too far reaching this to the north, away from Main Street, to consider it downtown, because we may or may not fill that in with business. So why not allow the residential and some of that stuff in those areas instead of keeping it zoned the way it is?
Yeah, the
And some of
zoning
that
map
stuff.
doesn't define the downtown whatsoever, just because it's.
But it does define what type of building is supposed to go in those areas,
Yeah.
which in theory is why it was done that way, was to set the boundaries for the downtown. That's why it was zoned the way it was.
Oh yes, yes, I understand that.
So if you had to come up with a geographic area of where downtown is, what would it be currently?
Yeah, currently you'd have to go. Well, obviously Front Street on the
You
one
could say,
side.
you could kind of say Maverick to,
Maverick to here and, or a little bit past, and one block on either side. I mean, that's
That's it.
about it.
I mean, now it'd be.
Anybody else?
I'd say a little further that way, like 2 blocks or 3 that way.
And
'cause
potentially,
we've
I would
got-
say-
Have one
First
block
Street.
that way.
I would say the First Street.
The
is where it-
railroad
is
track.
Where it could
Railroad
go.
track, yeah, we only got one block
Sorry.
on either side.
Yeah,
Say that again?
I would say to the west, I would say going as far as First Street. Because there's a lot of, well, right now there's either, like your Dollar General is down that way, you have that commercial piece next to it. You know, there's places that you could spread it out and go that far down.
I think it
And
could
yeah,
be.
you'd have to include the Maverick. You'd have to include the whatever dollar, the new dollar store.
South.
I mean, it's
That's
not
what
gonna
I say,
go
you'd
much
have to
further
start
to
at
the
the
east
mouth,
there
right?
because there's
Downtown to-
already.
That doesn't feel like
Like
downtown
downtown.
to me. That feels like suburbia to me. The gas stations and the dollar store, the big
Yeah.
box stuff.
I think it's from,
Like the Miners Claim to the liquor store. you know?
I feel
But
like our
then we
downtown
have
right
a-
now is fifth to,
Then our downtown is 2 blocks. That makes everything a lot
fifth to ninth
easier.
and south of home is the box I pretty much put it in.
Yeah.
There's not much to it. Until we all come together as a community and hang out in the middle of
Well,
town.
Yeah.
you're a community of 3,700 people, your downtown's not gonna be huge.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to go to
And then when you
nights.
combine the fact that of those 3,700 people, Monday through Friday, typically from 8 to 5,
They're gone.
3,000 of those people are somewhere else. Not quite, but, I mean, it sure seems like it
Yeah.
sometimes.
Considering that I think, if I remember right, the housing needs assessment said 5% of the people that live in town
Work in town.
So it's more than 3,000.
Yep.
I mean, well, of the working age population.
Which is a
it's
challenge,
probably
which is a
2,000.
challenge then for our businesses that are downtown because there's nobody here to shop.
There's no customers during the day.
Yeah.
It's almost like some of our businesses, if they could shift their thought process, instead of being open 8 to 5,
So,
you were open from 4 to 10.
I will-
You do more business.
I mean, somebody mentioned from, basically from 9th Street going west to something, all the way up to Home. Do we have a commercial enterprise on Home Avenue?
No. I mean, really, if you think about
Well,
it, no.
Nah.
On the south side of
I mean,
Holmes,
yes, you
there's
have-
that next to the trailer park over there.
You have Reichel's old building, really, out on Home, and that's about it. In terms of businesses.
So does the downtown split the block between Main and Home?
Pretty much.
Yeah, because then once you get to
Pretty
home,
much, yeah.
then we got the town hall, library block, and then
Would you consider,
Veterans Park.
Well, that's through
let me ask you
library.
this question. Would you consider the block that we sit on here in Town Hall, the library, the town center, and the Catholic Church, would you consider that part of downtown?
I would. I would, because I don't look at just businesses. And if we are looking into make walkable distance places such as post office, potentially, which got moved over there, we know, but we have town hall, places that people can walk in to do business with, I would consider, especially with the current spacing that we have now, part of downtown, especially when it's also walkable distance to the,
And if you're going to include this as part of downtown,
Businesses.
then you might as well include Veterans Park.
I was just gonna say that.
Well,
that far.
that's the zoning map says this is.
And that's kind of where the
Downtown,
zoning
yeah.
went
Our
from. But we just have this
gathering
disjointed section along Home that has so much residential around it. That's all residential
Yeah.
right now.
do we have the answer of what downtown is right now, or,
Do we have the answer?
yeah?
I don't
I'm
think-
asking you guys.
Yeah,
Okay.
there
Exactly
isn't.
what it
There
feels
isn't
like,
a
sort of.
definitive
Yeah.
boundary.
Yeah,
think
especially with community park also being developed, community park, Veterans Park, this area where they have the police station, they have town hall, the library, that feels like downtown to me in a lot of different
Yeah.
ways.
But the block across the street is considered downtown as well, and it's all residential.
Can anybody hear me? This is Lindsay on audio.
Now we can.
yes,
Yes.
Oh, great. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to add something quick to the conversation, a couple of ideas that have been tossed around, like the idea of kind of like a pedestrian mall where the bridge would end on the north side of 7th, I know has been discussed. And as we talk about kind of walkability and exploring other areas that could be south down there along Front Street. I hadn't heard that mentioned yet, and so I just wanted to bring that up real quick. Thanks.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I mean, I think like right where we, gather as, I guess mainly for Halloween and, and then where that plaza is gonna go really kind of feels for me like the core of our downtown. And then from there, it sort of branches out. And I think Front Street could be utilized because it's very centrally located for a lot of different things. But
So if we define it as downtown, would that trigger like the code change for the
Well, I think,
residential, things like that?
ultimately this discussion starts leading you
To that, whether it is mixed
All right,
use and things.
I mean, you already, you already have an overlay district for downtown that allows certain things. And I think ultimately, as you get into looking at code changes, comprehensive plan changes, you're going to look at what is it that we want to allow in our downtown? Is it a two-story building? Is it a three-story building? I mean, it's just, could it be a four-story building? Do you want to keep things, what would you allow? Do you want to encourage that first floor commercial retail office with
Yeah.
residential above? Would you accept somebody walks in the door tomorrow and says, I've got all the land under contract at the roundabout from the 2 vacant lots south to the Gross Locker plant, and they say, I want to put in 48 residential units in there. What do you say? Do you say yes? Do you say no?
I would say you should leave the first floor retail.
But this is, the point of the discussion is, what are you going to allow? Would you allow a purely residential building in your downtown?
I think we're gonna have to, because we are limited. We're not an unlimited area. We've only got X amount. I think that's something we're gonna have to just consider at least two-story.
Okay.
I mean, I'd go 3.
I mean, I like that downtown where Misty's and that is. I think that it fits great. It looks great. You got residential a little bit up. Nobody notices it up above, but you still got your, brings in your commercial down below.
When you could argue too, if you were to allow on the north side of Main Street, if you were to allow, say, 3-story or higher along that road, leaves more room for residential at top. But then it also is kind of a light blocker for the community beyond that, where you don't have that going that direction. It kind of would help buffer some of the sound coming off the interstate and some of those things.
So we talked about kind of downtown beginning at the west or east side of the roundabout. You could define the Maverick and the Good to Go and perhaps the dollar store as being part of downtown. If you had to say where your downtown is today, how far do you go west?
Yeah. You'd have to go to at least the Dollar General.
I don't think that's a downtown.
No, it's not really downtown, but
It's a retail store.
He
but
was
it
just
doesn't-
saying, how far do you think you should go?
No, I'm talking about where it is. Where would you call it today as your downtown?
Oh, today?
Can we have
Probably
like
not there.
core downtown and then
7th and 9th along Highway 6.
Yeah, see, I would consider,
downtown?
well,
It pretty much, I mean, if you think about it, because the residential where it is along between Dollar General and the liquor store in the corner, it kind of ends the liquor. It's like that little 2-block range right there. That's about
well,
it.
I'd almost go
On that side, on the north
5th
side.
Street to 8th Street. Because, every time we don't include Whimsical Wagon, they...
Well, no, I was about to say on the south side though, you do have, it does kind of
Yeah.
come
South side goes to 5th.
more, it goes more to 5th,
Yeah.
and it goes down there because now with the Brew Zone down there and some of that, it does tend to, it's starting to round out a little bit down that way.
Yeah, I was going to say, 5th
I mean, if the one
to
taco
8th.
truck were to go to a brick and mortar as their plan is at some point,
Yeah.
that would kind of fill that area out a little bit.
But the idea
Some of the
is,
growth areas.
the idea is that we could zone downtown to Fifth, and then that would sort of encourage or allow people to fill it.
And Director Centeno can talk more to this,
That
but
way.
we already have the downtown overlay district
Yeah,
that I think it encompasses a lot more than what you're talking
More, okay.
about right
it
now.
It
does.
does.
So then it comes down to what do we want to allow in the
And
downtown?
so, I mean, this will lead into a discussion of what does that zone district look like and what do you want to encourage and,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, my house is in the overlay district. I could have a business out of there if I wanted to. It's zoned for it.
which
So
is,
it does go up that far.
it raises
yes.
the question of, is that appropriate?
Well, and that's why I'm wondering if we could break it down into more of a core downtown. You
All right,
know,
so
if we're
let-
talking
all right.
3-4 story buildings that we're not, I don't know. I mean,
Jim, is there a historical district at all to take into account?
No.
We have like one
we could
historic
make a
building.
historical
We have two,
district.
yours and
Okay,
the
yeah,
bank
two.
building. which is
Two, yeah.
dilapidated.
We could start an
Yeah, the bank
initiative to
building, which
make a
isn't
historical
restorable.
district.
Well,
and it hasn't been.
Restorable with a
It
lot
could
of
be.
free money.
Before
But
the
as I
guy
say,
screwed
it's
with
not
it, it was,
restorable,
yeah.
not feasibly restorable.
All right, so mayor said 7th to 9th, kind of right on Main Street. Is that
Well,
your core?
I just say if you're calling
Well-
a friend from Glenwood, if you called a friend from Glenwood and said, meet me downtown Silt,
Yeah.
and didn't tell them where to meet you, where
They're
would
gonna
they,
say, okay,
where would they
Burns
meet
Lane?
you at?
I would say 5th to 9th, and I would include down south on Front Street
Front Street.
as part of that as well.
Yes, but
Just-
then I
just
would
because of the
also-
recent growth
yeah.
through zone,
Yeah.
the taco truck there
And-
that
and
again will
Whimsical
be.
Wagon is,
I would
the
also
Whimsical
include
Wagon is
7th
what I see
Street
as a
up
typical
to-
traditional downtown type business. Really.
Up to Grand. I would include 7th Street, 6th to 8th Street, a block away from 7th Street up to Grand, because in that way you include the city, town hall, the library.
Would you include the north side of Main Street from 5th to 7th? as
The north side of
downtown?
Main from 5th to 7th.
Not right now, but I
Right
mean,
now, right now.
No.
Nope.
What are you gonna do there? Oh, well,
Live.
there's the community garden.
Now, that's a part. I mean, there is a dog grooming
There's a
salon.
hairstylist
There is a
That's
hair
true.
salon
That's true.
down
That's
there
true.
at
Sorry.
6th
I don't mean
Street.
to talk bad about anybody who is there.
Yeah.
And they have that building is the same style as where Misty's and that stuff is.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's
ground
just, but
floor is
there's those older
commercial.
traditional residential along there that.
Would
long
you
as-
include,
I would go to 6th.
would you include from Main Street all the way to home, or would you just go to the alleyway?
To the alleyway, if at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you talking about
Well-
where the library is?
No,
half
I'm
a
talking
block
about
further
between the
south.
housing authority
Yeah.
and where Misty's Coffee and the liquor store are. There's that's kind of an alleyway that runs
Yeah.
through there, splits the block.
Yes.
Yeah, because the old Tim's Tools is in there,
Well, he's saying alley, but then, like I said, Reichel's old building would always be excluded, and it's commercial. So you'd almost have to do a block either side of 7th Street up to home. I don't know. Well, sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
'cause I'm still excluding the building I just mentioned.
Yeah.
So that doesn't work. Okay.
So,
So we don't have a downtown.
well, again, this
Not
is
much.
part of the
That's
whole
really how I
Yeah,
exercise.
that's
Well,
where
we have
we're
a down
trying
couple
to-
blocks.
We have a
You got
down.
a couple blocks. That's your downtown. There's nothing wrong with having a couple blocks as your downtown. Again, it's a community of 3,700 people.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a 4 square block downtown, especially when 7 miles in one direction and 7 miles in the other direction. You've got other communities.
Yeah. Which
And then you
goes
go another
back.
7 miles after that, then you have a larger town in Glenwood that has
Right.
everything, and you have being that, and we're already a community that's used to driving, that's used to going
Well,
places.
we do live in a society that's used to driving, but I think part of the goal throughout all this is to figure out a way where people don't have to drive
Oh, yeah.
quite
Yeah.
as much.
I mean, it all goes back to the mayor's first comment about bedroom town.
The problem with the bedroom community is bedrooms don't generate a lot of tax revenue, which you need to be able to do stuff.
Don't support
So then you
local
run in
businesses.
this, that endless cycle that you run into of how do you get the money to do it, but then once you get, I mean, we talk about the downtown too, is keeping those spaces filled with businesses has been a challenge.
That's a function of rooftops.
Yep.
And the more rooftops that you have in the area will generate more interest in opening and operating businesses. Now, there are things that the town will be able to do along the way to encourage that. But organically, some of that will happen just by the increased number of residents that the town is going to experience.
But not if our code is encouraging the behavior that we don't want, right? So we got to get that correct.
Well, I'm not sure that the code is necessarily discouraging the behavior we want. I don't know that it's complementary to what you guys want to see or what the town would
Yeah.
like to see.
Just making sure it meets our goals. That's all I mean, yeah.
So, that being said, 20 years from now, what should downtown look like?
20 years ago, it wasn't much different than it is now. So I'm thinking 20 years in the future, it's not going to be much different than it is now.
But if you look at the growth rates, they're a little different now
Yeah,
than they
you,
were
we
20
used-
years ago.
But I mean, 20 years ago,
20
the
years ago,
population of the
the-
town was
Yeah.
1,700?
Doubled it.
Yeah, that's true. It was
So
a
we've-
lot smaller.
We've doubled the population,
Yeah.
and downtown's still the same as it was.
Well, with the exception of where Misty's is, that building didn't exist 20
Okay.
years ago. So we did have a brand new building within that 20-year time span.
Okay? A.
For downtown
Yeah,
to get more
A.
businesses or or whatever, restaurant, whatever, I think I counted 8 houses that are along Main Avenue. That's taking up 8 spaces. But we can't change that,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, if they left, that would give us more room, but they're not in 20 years. I'm just thinking down the road. If they left, that would give us, there's 1, 2, I think there was 9 houses that's kind of mixed in with our downtown along Highway 6. And that's not gonna change unless they decide to move and we buy them out or something down the road to make it downtown.
Do you think that non-residential development is viable north of Main Street?
Not a lot. No.
No, because there's too much remaining infill to be done in the existing spaces. Right, before we worry about, to Jerry's point, what happens with those 8 or 9 houses, there's plenty of vacant space that doesn't have a residence on it that could be filled in with a potential business, which is going to be quicker for the developer and or the business, as well as for us from a rules basis. Infill is going to be the primary driver of commercial development, probably for the next decade. I don't think we have to worry about expansion. I think we focus on infill.
I just I don't see it happening, but
I think the
maybe,
pace, to
I
go
don't know
back
what's
to
gonna happen
Chris's
in 20
point,
years, but-
I think the pace of economic development is increasing, not just in Silt, but if you look 20 miles to the west and 20 plus miles to the east, I would say regionally, Western Garfield County, the rate of
Yeah.
change in terms of economic development is increasing. So even if we're at the back end of that, we're going to increase our rate of economic development and change, unless we intentionally choose otherwise.
Yeah, and I hope I'm wrong. But, in 20 years we had a building.
Well, but, you also didn't necessarily use the tools that you have in your tool chest to foster any economic development.
That's true.
It was a wait and see approach. And it was we're just gonna let things happen on its own. We're not gonna try to do anything that's gonna drive it. You build the pedestrian bridge and the pedestrian plaza, that's a driver.
Mm-hmm.
That's a driver towards economic development. You work with, somebody that comes in that wants to redevelopment a building, that becomes an economic driver. There are things that the town can do that's gonna help drive economic development. And once you do one project, if you're helping, all of a sudden other people are gonna show up because they're gonna want the help too.
Yeah.
And so it becomes, you look at, and I've talked about the Catalyst project, which is the southwest quadrant of the 9th Street roundabout. You do a project there, that remakes your downtown to a certain extent. It doesn't expand it, but it remakes it to a certain extent.
To Derek's
We need
point,
to
yeah.
think, we don't-
Unless we
yeah.
do it or.
In a perfect world, 20 years from now, it would be great if our building over here with the four-wheeler and the shops in there was gone and some developer come in and put a little mini mall in. I'm just saying, that would be the perfect, but it ain't gonna happen. I just don't see it. But if that building was gone, that'd be a heck of a place to put in, a beautiful downtown mini something.
Yeah.
Another example would be the fire station, if/when they relocate that into a new facility. That could become a location for a bigger box store, to the mayor's point, a grocery store, that may be a big enough footprint for them to develop on. Again, I'm assuming a lot in that example.
But you're right. I mean, that
That's
isn't
a
the
big
best spot
footprint
for
in terms
a
of
fire
space.
station.
But they're remodeling. They're gonna be there for the next,
All right, did they finalize that?
Yeah.
Are they staying in place?
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
All right, well then
was
forget
the
that
other-
example.
Well, and some of that's because they don't have the funds to go build from scratch somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna completely remodel that, so- but yeah, I mean, that
Even
would be
that,
an
having that
ideal.
remodeled and be nicer down there is
Yeah.
would be more attractive to downtown. I mean, it's gonna make
And
it,
they only say that's not the best spot because they have to back
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
all,
yeah.
that's all gonna
they have to
change.
back into
Ah,
traffic.
Schmack, it's all okay.
That
Got
used to be-
cameras
Yeah.
now. I mean,
That
come
used to be
on.
a problem, but we fixed it
The,
now.
Problem, we fixed that.
Yeah.
Mirrors are replaceable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they got
I mean-
license sirens, they can stop people. People should see.
We're on the right direction with the bridge and Front Street and
All
that.
right, let me ask you this question. If 20 years from now, downtown was exactly the same as it is right now, but it was full, is that a success?
Yes, because we've had such a hard time keeping these buildings occupied. I think that would be a success if everything was full. Yeah.
I like the idea of a full downtown that's nice and dense, so everything isn't all spread out. I think it helps with the walkability of it and all that too.
Could I just suggest something to maybe think about is, you know, when you go into a store, a retail shop, they like to be well merchandised. And I'm just picking this up from listening to you. A downtown I'm thinking of, I used to live on a little island in Florida called Cedar Key that's been wiped out a couple of times by hurricanes. And before the hurricanes, there was more going on, obviously, downtown. And there was more of a draw and a feeling when it was well merchandised and bustling. Obviously, a hurricane's going to wipe that out and they're going to have to build back up. But I think it made the example of what it felt so different when that town was merchandised. And it's a very small town on a very small island. But if you've got a robust Main Street and just a robust couple of blocks, so maybe robust and well merchandised mean the same things, but I don't know how you achieve that, because you can't go build businesses and make them succeed. So I don't know how to think about that in the whole thing, but it seems to me that maybe the idea of what's well merchandised in your town that can be have a lasso around it a little bit
Yeah.
is maybe an interesting way to think.
I feel like we have that from like 8th to, from Miners Claim through, you know, that one, and Misty's, that block is really bustling, vibrant, well merchandised, and it's got the format.
If
you
we
know.
could replicate the west end of, well, there's that one spot in the middle that's not too nice.
But it's, I mean, it's a full
But
functioning
if you
block.
could replicate that block on all the other blocks, you'd have a very nice
That'd be
little
very,
downtown.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, if we were having this discussion 4 or 5 years ago and thought, would we have let that church in? Because that's,
You didn't have a choice about that.
We didn't have a choice, and that,
You didn't have a
I know, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, you know,
Yeah,
it,
choice, yeah.
But you, and I will say that, you know, there are any number of downtowns that you can post or point to that will have a religious
Religious facility,
organization
right.
there.
Yeah.
I mean, Catholic churches used to build on the highest point in any community, and they were the center of, well, at least in Wisconsin, they were the center of the community, and that's where they went. So, I mean, having a church
Yeah.
downtown isn't necessarily a negative, because that's a bunch of people coming in to downtown.
I kind of just
Yeah.
see that as a nonprofit that,
Yeah.
No,
I
but,
mean, they're-
but
So, okay, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, yeah, I'd rather see a downtown that's 1 or 2 blocks that's completely full than one that's spread out several blocks that has huge gaps in the middle. You
well,
know?
if people come to shop, they don't like that as much.
Exactly. Yeah, and it goes back to the walkability thing. You know.
Yeah, yeah, you go to Misty's and then you can go to the boutique and you can walk
Exactly.
around and, yeah.
Okay.
so the one thing in 20 years I would like to see a development where Fernie's Tacos is at.
So a little west, that is,
That little,
Oh, Lively Electric.
no,
no, that's,
the southwest corner
before
by the
First.
roundabout.
Oh, by the roundabout. Oh,
Oh,
we're, yeah.
Oh, where Fernie's used to be.
Yeah, I guess it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's still labeled Fernie's on the map, so.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's where the Mayans are.
Mayan,
Mayan,
and
yeah.
Harvey Gap Mellons usually parks
Yep.
the
Yep.
truck.
So that,
And then where you say,
that area,
where
if
Gross's
that was
block
developed in
plan
20
is, so
years,
that
then I
down there.
think the downtown is good for the next
Well, my
40
goal
years.
is next, less than 5, so
Well,
there you go.
Yeah,
Perfect.
thank you.
In talking
Yeah.
to Jim, you had told me just about a vision about having some sports center being developed on the land as you drive
So-
into the town.
So, the town owns the Cattails, which, you know where the Cattails are, between the Dollar Tree, Family
Family Dollar.
Dollar, and the
Storage.
mini storage.
Storage.
That's lowland. It's not, it's not, it looks like wetlands. It's not wetlands. It's only wetlands because the railroad and the highway are there. It's probably not area that would support commercial residential development. Just by putting a structure in our namesake is going to be difficult. But that is a place that we've talked about
rugby
building
field.
play fields.
And I liked it because I also envisioned as you drive into Grand Junction in one of their exits, the entrance for the town has baseball fields and some beautiful fields. If well maintained, is a good looking scene for the town, and that could potentially represent part of what downtown is for that vision that I had, with the additional developments down the road.
My problem with sports fields is there's no trees, it's just very
But-
Yeah,
barren.
the design
the
design
design
of
of
the
it, I mean,
field
yeah.
itself, we have some
You can make the
great
light poles look like
developers.
trees.
We can make it look pretty.
Cell tower trees.
That's our trees for light poles.
That's like
Well,
worse
We'll make it
somehow.
look nice
70
and
of them.
welcome.
All right, rail, back on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can kind of go on to the next thing. Now, what makes Silt Silt?
Comfy place to
Yeah,
sleep.
What?
It's a comfy place to sleep.
What makes
The
Silt?
pavilion.
What
I
makes
think the
Silt?
pavilion, some of the community events that we have,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, all I heard was paper.
the community events that we have. A lot of Nicole's hard work.
Yeah.
Team effort.
Diverse young community.
Great place to sleep.
Good place to sleep.
Sure.
Which I think that we're a peaceful, quiet community, right? That's nice. But we also have fun, like
You posted
live
what-
music.
What did you throw out there? You remember? I heard something.
I did say.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, you're fine. I'll remember before you finish.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to stay in the present, so I'm sorry. I'll remember in just a little bit.
And you said quiet.
Well, yeah, and then I also said live music.
Yeah.
Like heydays and different events. I guess that goes under events too, but
But yeah, but compared to Glenwood, where there's noise 24/7, it's quiet here. Yeah.
yeah.
What else?
Diverse community, diverse young community, that's what I
That's
said.
what she said, yeah.
Yeah. Diverse young population, is what makes
The only
sense.
community that's younger than us is Parachute
Yeah.
in the county.
31 was the average.
We're the most affordable place. Well, I mean, that's changing real fast.
Yeah,
But
that's changing real fast.
Well,
We're like
Yeah.
a gateway to the outdoors, hiking, rafting, camping, all of the things that make Colorado an awesome place to live. We have ideal access to all of it.
Isn't that Palisades marketing
I
expression?
think that's
sitting
half
here
the
thinking,
towns on I-70's
Everybody
marketing.
says that in Colorado. I mean, not that it's not
it's
true,
true.
but I think the key is really to think about what's that thing that really makes,
Yeah.
what's the one thing that really makes it different?
No
don't come for the
stoplights.
soils, stay for the people.
No.
Yeah.
I keep running out, I'll keep throwing taglines at you.
Small town.
What's a small town?
Where everybody knows your name, just like the Cheer song. Yeah.
Which wasn't a small town, ironically.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's
think that
true.
was a
Big
bar.
city. Yeah, that was a bar.
A very large town.
But
So
what,
I go
mean,
into the miners' claim. They all know my name. So.
But, I mean, you know,
No
what are the attributes of a small town?
I mean, I like it because I can be like a modern homesteader in my suburban house. I can still work from home with fast internet. There's no traffic. So I have all of the perks of a big city.
You haven't been out at 5:30 at night. or
No,
Ninth
I don't go
Street.
out at 5:30 at night because I have the choice not to.
She's already been home. She doesn't have to get there
I
whenever else to
wait
get.
until later, but so it's like you have all of those benefits. You shop everywhere, and we get the sales tax if you shop online. So everybody remember that.
I think people are friendlier to each other by default in a smaller town.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get a lot of "Hey, how are yous" in New York, or
Might get a lot of
Chicago,
haze,
or
but
Boston,
followed by
or
"How are
any,
you?"
or even Denver for that matter. I think people are. When I go on bike rides and stuff, people wave. People don't honk for me to get the heck out of the way. Generally, I think it's the familiarity and the smallness breeds comfort and socialization. I think we feel a little more at ease and perhaps a little less defensive than we do when we're in the city and we're making sure that doors are locked and purses are zipped and things of that nature when you're going out in a more urban locale.
Safety?
Safety.
Safety. And we're extremely family oriented. I mean, even compared to the other towns in this valley, we have just, I think, because of the affordability and everything, but so everyone really values that safety and has a lot of shared values because we're all kind of raising our kids together here.
What else? What makes Silt different than Newcastle? Parachute, rifle.
I know. Yeah, we're all quiet. Yeah. Come on, Lindsay. You have any ideas?
I mean, I know why we're different than Glenwood, because we're not Glenwood.
Because we're not
Yeah.
going.
Sorry, Steve.
Chris said it used to be affordable, but that's going away somewhat quickly.
But
It's still affordable though, and I mean, in the scheme of things,
relative?
yeah, it's still. I would still say it's
But
affordable.
I mean, that's how I wound up here because
Roaring
it was
Fork
the most
Valley affordable.
affordable place that I could afford a home 20 years ago. Yeah.
Right.
Comparatively, though, are we still
Comparatively.
affordable?
I don't know. Anyone
I
else?
mean, I think regionally, we've lost affordability.
No, I think everything's more or less
So-
getting to be the same, no matter where you're at.
So, but I mean, are we still technically affordable?
We're still the last town clinging to affordability.
Statistically, yes.
Statistic. Yeah.
Yep, but what everybody's referring to is a matter as much of perception.
Yeah.
Can you guys think about, I'd be curious to understand, what does it take to take your family out for dinner around here? Can you take a family of 4 out for how much might be a good, not that the family, I mean, it's just an example, to say a family of 4, but maybe that's a way to think about the affordability of an area. I live in Grand Junction, and I know that if I go out for a salad, and if I dare to get a tiny little beer, I'm gonna pay north of $30 to get a nice salad and a beer.
It's the same here.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes, maybe slightly, $5
Pretty
less,
much, yeah.
Maybe don't
maybe,
Maybe.
affordability.
not including
We're in the
tip.
Aspen Valley still
Yeah.
kind of, or, it's trickling down on us, I
Go
think.
down here
so.
to El Saison and
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah,
have
Mayans, you could pull that off.
Mines you could
to
pull
have
that
as
off.
much overhead.
Yeah, it depends on where you go, but yeah.
You can't get the beer. But but no, the taco places, the taco trucks you can feed a couple, but it's not.
it's not a restaurant.
It's not
I
like
mean,
it-
it's a food
Yeah.
service.
I mean,
but
a
it's
place
not
to sit down and eat, you're looking at, Miner's Claim definitely is in the, if you want to call it lower end affordability. It's, I mean, for a burger, you're what? I haven't been there in a while. It's
It's a
like
high.
$10, $15.
No, it's
20?
19?
15.
Yeah,
15 for a burger?
That's for
Yeah,
one.
that's
Plus a
about
beer.
where a burger is anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
same.
So I think I don't think it's any different than you're gonna find anywhere else.
No,
Or affordable,
no, I think it's just,
Do other towns have their own nature preserve with a farm on it? We have that.
Yeah.
It's a cool thing.
Oh, you're right. I mean, yeah.
I think it's cool. I tell people about it.
all right, so what makes Glenwood, Newcastle, Silt, Rifle, Parachute, we all have the same thing.
We have the best boat ramp. No, I don't know if that's true,
We
actually.
all have the river. What makes Silt's River different than any of those other communities?
We have a dog park at the boat ramp. We now have Rislende, which is cool because you can boat to it and then pop across. That's like brand new. But
Is Silt's River any different than those other communities?
I think it's almost less accessible in Silt than it is anywhere else.
I was going to say that too.
Well, I wouldn't say,
Yeah.
it depends on what you're looking to do in it, because if you're looking at like whitewater rafting, we don't have that. But we are, like, for the fly fishermen and stuff, obviously, you go down to that parking lot on a weekend, and it is packed with trailers. Now granted, some of those people are putting in upriver and then shuttling the trailer down here to pick it up at the end of the day, and they shuttle down and come out. But that's a lot of this right there. That parking lot expansion, I mean, if it wasn't being used a lot and it wasn't that's made it more accessible by having that expansion down there.
I was just
Hey everyone, this is Lindsay. Also, I just think like Silt's the epicenter of it all, right? Like we're the middle of everything, which is great. So people are either starting or ending. And I would argue that also like our river access points are far better than Newcastle and to a certain extent Rifle. I mean, between Rislande, the dog park, the nature preserve, there's just so many different points to access the river too that I think differentiates us.
I like that, Lindsay, the epic center of it all. Because
Yeah, it is. We are the center of the universe. Whoever said that, I'll back you up.
Jim likes to say that.
Yeah, it's the same distance, but if you go to Rifle or Newcastle, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. What else? Anything? There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just asking the questions.
I think we have a lot of room to grow.
Yeah. Yes.
That makes Silt though.
It does.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
I think it does.
not
I mean,
necess-
it-
yeah.
Yeah, it's not an if
the
question, it's
future
a
of it.
how
It's a how
question.
question, yeah.
And it goes back to your.
Maybe it's just because I have my hands in the dirt right now, but room to grow is like an awesome tagline. It means many different things.
And you said it earlier, Mayor, that the gap between being a small town, being a bedroom community, and being a tourist hotspot, right? Really, that's like a full spectrum. It's not one or the other. It's finding that sweet spot in the middle
middle,
where you
yeah.
can drive economic opportunity without sacrificing your quality of life.
And we can be multifaceted and maybe,
Yeah, I mean, Fruta did a great job. Fruta was nothing
right.
15 years ago,
And then they built bike trails.
and now they're something.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have mountain
Couple
So-
golf courses.
With everything
And they're
on the
doing a
page,
good job of
community
pushing
events,
back.
Great place to
When
sleep,
you look at
quiet.
what government's doing,
um,
they are putting their hand out sometimes and saying, no, we're not doing that.
Right.
Especially to some big box store opportunities that they said no to. I thought it was bold.
So, with everything on the board, community events, great place to sleep, quiet, diverse young community, small town, middle of everything, gateway to the outdoors. What's the most important thing?
sustainable growth, safety, continue to,
Sustainable growth isn't on the page. Do you want me to put it on the page?
I think it's,
Silt is a town that values sustainable growth. Yes, you could.
Okay.
I agree the room to grow is a pretty cool tagline actually because, we're not so crowded. Like there's some real congestion feeling if you go to community events in other towns and things like Silt still does have some room.
But if you're selling the fact that we aren't crowded, then do we want to develop and make it crowded?
I think we all probably have a different
I
reason.
know, I mean, and that's the
No,
thing, is
you're right, yes.
that right there, it does, that's kind of the balance of it.
So what was the question again, Jim?
Of everything that's up on the page, what's the most important thing?
Okay.
Let's just go, can we just go one to the next?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I'll start. Mine's small town. I might have said room to grow, but I'm here because it's a small town.
Keep these small.
I don't want anybody else here.
You
I'm
can
small
grow.
town too, that's
Yeah.
why I said it.
It's
Gary?
gateway to the outdoors for me all the way.
I've been here 32 years. It's a small town. I mean, I like it. That's why I moved here. 35 years, I guess.
So what does it mean, though?
Yeah, I'm going to say small town.
Well, the definition that was put up here for a small town was friendliness, comfort, safety, family oriented.
It's small town for me.
Yeah, I mean, because that right there, and then you, I mean, 'cause
With that
with
definition.
those definitions, you can throw your community events laws that fit into the small town.
Yeah, it is somewhat of an umbrella term,
Is that,
as opposed to a singular
So I'd say, I
definition.
mean, I'd go with the small town as well, just because it does fit that. I mean, you have because the community events and stuff are a part of what make that, but.
Yeah, I guess I cheated.
Because I mean, I
It's not
think
that
about,
specific.
I mean, I was born in South Dakota and Southwest Kansas, but like when you go back to South Dakota, like go to like northern Minnesota and those small towns, places like that. It's what it is. It is, you go down and like when they have the parades.
Yep.
And they have their little festival. Having those festivals is an important part of those towns, because without those, you don't, I mean, there's a town that's a few minutes from our cabin that we've had, that is they've deemed themselves the turtle racing capital of the world. And they have every summer, on Wednesdays, they shut down their main street. All the businesses are crazy busy. The ice cream shop has a line a mile out the door. And they have two circles in the middle. To make the turtle races, it's literally a circle and another circle. And when I was a kid, you caught your turtle and took it there. Well, they don't let you do that anymore. Now they have to clean the turtles to make sure nobody gets sick from the turtles. So they supply the turtles now. But, I mean, that's just change. But the thing is, the fact is that I'm 49 years old, and I remember at 4 and 5 and 6 years old going to turtle races, and they're still doing the turtle races.
Yeah.
so do community events then get added to the small town nature?
Yeah.
I would say,
I
yeah.
would
Yeah.
say so. And would the sports too? The
And-
children's
I mean, because
sports
Heydays
such
is
a
pretty
huge
much
part of it.
essential, it's like quintessential small town. That event is what a small town is. I mean, it's the whole,
Yeah.
literally about going and saying hey to your neighbors.
No, you're right. Yeah, and to
We're not cutting your ass.
piggyback, you know, and to keep it small too, because you know when I grew up in Glenwood, yeah, it was your small town, but now there's so many, 5-6 story apartment buildings there. It's not a small town anymore. So that the whole feel of that place to me has changed.
Okay, that raises
You
an
know?
interesting question. What ruins a small town?
Big box stores.
I know the answer to that.
Big box stores.
Big box stores.
What else?
Yeah. Apartment buildings, like I just said.
Yeah, 5, 6,
You might
5 or
think
6
about your
story
rental
buildings.
policy as well.
I'm sorry, what?
I don't know what your rental policy is, but I know that Airbnb's ruined Breckenridge.
Yeah, you mean STRs.
Glenwood's got an issue with that too.
Well,
That says big multifamily development in my chicken scratch, just
Oh,
so
okay.
you're aware. Okay. Any other comments? Because we gotta kind of go on to the next item.
Yeah, I would say poorly managed or poorly guided economic development. Right, if it's uncontained or uncontrolled, it gets ugly quickly.
I've driven through some towns where they had like an oil boom and then that busted, and it was like a roughneck town that is on the downward end of that, and that's really sad to see. When they didn't protect their town from basically being exploited by outside developers at all. and then you just see the aftermath of it, and it's just ugly. So that
Okay.
can ruin a small town.
Any other final comments? Okay. Well, it gets us somewhere. Kind of gets us a start. 20 years. I got 20 years. I won't be here in 20 years, but I'll get you set.
I was just saying, we got him on record.
Are you
He said he's gonna
sure?
be here for 20 years.
I didn't say that. I said I got 20 years to put something in place that maybe gets you where you want to be. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit for the work session was we finished up the housing needs assessment. Question, Mayor Pro Tem Hanrahan brought it up. What's the next steps? So we have a couple of things that we have to absolutely do related to our next steps with the housing needs assessment, which are really twofold. It's updating the comprehensive plan and rewriting chapters 16 and 17 of the Silt Municipal Code. So the question is, for you to think about and maybe discuss a little bit, is the last time we did the comprehensive plan, I think it was home baked.
Yes, because I was on P&Z at the time. Yes, we did it all in-house.
Do you want to home bake it again? Or do we need to bring somebody in to help us with that? Because the comprehensive plan and the zoning code are a little bit contradictory in places.
Mr. Mayor, didn't we do a review that we contracted that company in 2019? We even have documents sent out. Well, wasn't that the final master plan? I'm trying to recall it by memory.
We did have some help at some point from DOLA, yeah. They came in and.
That's who produced the
But
document?
before, we kind of looked it over at that point, but we redid it way back when, yeah. And we did it in-house.
Yeah, in 2017 was the last
Yeah.
time.
2017 was when you last adopted
Yeah.
or updated the comprehensive plan.
I think it could be valuable to have some outside help, if nothing else, because if we home bake it, you tend to, if you're doing it at home, you tend to do it the way you've done it. Whereas if we have some outside input, we may have some new ideas and some new things that we didn't think about that would get us where we want to go.
I totally agree with that.
It's hard to be objective, whereas a third party with some subject matter expertise can help us score it objectively
Right.
and find the parts where we've come up short and maybe other areas where we've exceeded. But I think we should be doing it every 10 years as a default, scoring ourselves and adjusting it based on the economic, social realities of the time. What worked
Because I
in
think it's
20...
natural to be defensive of your home, and you want to protect it, and you want it to stay the way it always has been, or you may not want to, but it's hard to have that outside vision. Maybe if you can get some outside input, they may help you see things a little differently than you have.
So yes, I think we want some outside help.
Okay.
I think we just have too much on our
Yeah.
plate. It's like
I guess
overwhelming.
to me it depends on what it costs. If it's going to cost us, 80, 90 grand, I'm going to say no. But
Do you want a document that represents what you want?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
do you want another home baked document?
Well, and that's where, and the thing is, too, you got to look at it. Yes, there's a cost to it, but it's an investment. Just like
I mean, if
anything
we
else.
have the money, then
If you
yeah.
invest it and if you use the investment correctly and you do it well,
Yeah.
then it will come back tenfold. But we have to do it well. And if you do it halfway, and then we're spending, if we're doing home baking it, I mean, you got to think too. There's costs.
Yeah.
There may not be a cost for putting out initially, but if say Nicole's involved in doing the home bake thing, how much time is she spending on doing that when she should be doing other things that need to be done as well?
Well,
Yeah,
and
but-
therein lies one of the problems that we're gonna have if we home bake this, is that it's gonna take up time.
Yeah.
That and also it takes a
Well,
lot
this-
longer. And
But
we
then
can't
if
use
you
it.
think about it, in 2017, it was just an update. It wasn't a complete, starts from scratch rewrite. It
And
was
this
just
is
an
gonna
update.
be a roadmap for so
Yeah.
many things. So I feel like if we're gonna invest the money in something, this is the important step because that's gonna.
No, and that's fine. And I just remember during the
I hear what
recession,
I agree with you though.
like in 08 or 09, the town did it, spent like $50,000 when the town didn't have that type of money. But granted, this isn't during a recession, but I just remember that. And then we all had to go on furlough days. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Has to be a reasonable amount.
So we will put together some sort of request document for an update to our comprehensive plan. Should we include in that scope of services the redrafting of titles 16 and 17?
If they have the
Oh, do you wanna
expertise to
rewrite
do
title
both, no,
16 and
definitely
17?
sense.
Yourself?
Not necessarily by myself.
Can you get an estimate with it and then without?
I think we need to
We can
change
do,
those.
we can do a two-phase
Request.
RFP.
I mean, you could do it as, I mean, you get bids where you have doing one, doing the other, or doing both. Because some people, some firm may come in and say, we'll do both at this because we're already there. We're in there doing it. And to an extent, rewriting those may help them with the other.
But rewriting them wouldn't allow us to give them guidance of the changes that we wanted to, be done to the code. I know once we have good direction of what the code rewrite needs to be, it would be a good point to hand it over, which that could still happen, but just to make it clear, we're not just giving it to them. We're still gonna have to work the changes on the codes.
In practice, it's usually advisory. They recommend changes, and then we have final editorial control over them. Yes, we like this, let's change that, this doesn't quite work. They would submit it to us, but we would then be able to draft it and specify it and put it into our town policies based on an internal consensus.
Prime example is
Boilerplate.
Prime example is our housing needs assessment.
I was gonna say.
They made a bunch of recommendations that we haven't necessarily incorporated in any document other than that housing needs assessment. We had just completed an update to our parking code that actually, one of the recommendations was that we needed to lessen our parking requirements. And yet, we recognize that that probably is untenable for the type of living arrangements that we've got here in the community, where you've got larger families and multiple families living in a single unit, having 1.5 parking stalls
Doesn't work.
doesn't work. The math doesn't work. I mean, we look at some of the developments that we're reviewing right now, the math doesn't work for what is being proposed either, but it's better. Because, I mean, you put a 2-bedroom unit out there that's, $2,000 a month, $2,200 a month. You might have 4 people living there with 4 vehicles, and we require 2 parking spaces.
And in this area, because of the outdoors stuff and whatnot, recreational things, it's not only the 2 vehicles, it's 4 cars to get to and from work, plus the recreational car you take camping, and then the side-by-side that you do for the weekends. And
If that would help, facilitating the code rewriting, taking away also like hours and hours that normally take, and would be helpful, absolutely. But again, we'll just do what we need to do.
And everything that we're talking about doing feeds into this comprehensive plan and code rewrite. The housing needs assessment was a component, the branding exercise that we're talking about doing, the website redesign, everything really starts feeding into
Comprehensive plan.
the same, it all has parallel tracks.
Okay. And is it a silly request to have copies of chapter 16 and 17 of the code for me to read?
We can certainly print it out, or it's.
It's available online.
It's available
Yeah,
online.
town's website.
Okay.
Are you having trouble sleeping? Because it'll help.
It'll help.
I don't have to read letter by letter, word by word.
It is a cure for insomnia.
I've seen the book,
Yeah.
so I have an idea. Okay, no, I can find it.
And it may,
Can we have, like,
actually, it might cause you sleeplessness, because I'm pretty sure it causes Director Centeno sleeplessness.
I was gonna say, can we have a list of some of the silliest rules? Some of those where it's like laws that are now repealed that were just ridiculous.
Well, I think, yeah, I think probably one of the silliest rules in there is our architectural design standards, because there isn't a single house in the river bottom part downtown that would meet design standards.
Well, and when I was saying we don't want codes that discourage behavior
But-
we want, I was
Yeah.
thinking of
But-
that one.
But that doesn't mean that when we're building a new subdivision, we don't want those design standards. So there's a
Right.
balancing act that I think we need to get to based upon many different factors that are gonna come out through this process. That it's not gonna necessarily be a one-size-fits-all. Perhaps in the R2 and R3 zoning districts in this area, the design review standards are much less stringent than they would be, say, in Camarillo or the next phase of Painted Pastures or the next development that comes along.
Well, and that could be the difference between infill or replacing dilapidated housing.
Yep.
Could require less design standards than new construction on bare ground.
Okay. We'll get to work on that. We'll add that to our RFP list.
Okay,
That's it?
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it for the work session.
13 minutes of break time.
There we go.
Okay.
Hey, I just wanted to mention that, 100 years ago in the
There goes the 13
1920s, the town's downtown was actually 7th Street. It wasn't Main. It was 7th Street because the train depot sat by the train tracks at the south end of 7th Street. So you actually had like a hotel there, and obviously the old bank building, you had a bank, and in the 20s you had a movie theater, you had the post office is there. Anyway, in the 1920s, Silt's biggest boom town, or boom time, because you had, mercantile stores, you had grocery stores, you had a theater, you had the Oddfellows Hall, you had the train depot, you had, town hall was there. So, in 100 years, that whole thing has shifted. Obviously the Depression pretty much, kiboshed that.
Was a
but-
factor.
Yeah, the church is the whole depot. But, just as a reference,
Yeah.
100 years ago, things were.
Well, now we're trying, I think the goal is to try to reclaim.
Seesaws.
Just seesaws back.
Yeah.
They moved that up there with horses and logs.
Summertime, because there's so much.
As they slid that up there, they had big logs and horses.